record to the computer. That would be nice. Share. There it is. Okay, and Logan, since you're there, you're my test subject as far as for the Zoom part goes. Let me know if you can see the screen.
I can see it perfectly fine.
Okay. And the rest of you can see it up here on the monitor. I will be grading your writing skills. Not necessarily if you're using the perfect grammar or if you're, something, we're not doing that, but APA 7, I'm big about. Why? Well, I'm an academic author. I have my PhD. I've got 5 degrees. If someone uses one of my things that I've written and I've published and doesn't cite me, they're stealing from me. They're taking my ideas and all the research I did. And a research project can take about 2 years. And so it's a lot of time to do that. And now they're stealing it. They're claiming it as their own. And APA 7 helps us guard against that. Now, from your end, it can cost you your tuition, your scholarship, ability to play sports. And I don't want to see that happen. So we are going to go through a quick tutorial over APA 7. This way, we're all on the same sheet of music when I grade your assignments and discussions. The university does require it. You'll find it in the handbook. You'll find it in the syllabus. It's how you format the entire paper. Now, you don't have to worry about margins and all that. I'll tell you why. Use the template. The Clear University Library that has an APA 7 and writing page. Go there. There's a template already formatted for you. You don't have to think or nothing. When I was at college, I used the template all the time. Saved me a lot of heartache till I got to my dissertation. And then I had to format my paper. APA 7 gives us a clear way to cite and reference our sources. Sometimes people think if I just put the citation at the end of a paragraph, I'm covered. For any time I talk about that source in that paragraph, nope. APA 7 says that every single sentence that you use material from a source, you must include in that sentence a citation. There's 2 ways to cite, and we'll go over them briefly. But this way, I, as a reader, or in my case, because I write academically and I publish, my readers can look and they say, oh, I want to learn more about this. And they see exactly who I'm citing. And they can go to my reference page and they can find it, read it the whole article or whole textbook for themselves. So that's what. Also keeps us from plagiarizing. There are 3 types of plagiarizing. And normally I like to get up and walk a lot when I lecture, but because this is a Zoom class, I try to stay more here. So my voice, though it carries, it's easier for them to hear. 3 types of plagiarizing. You have unintentional. That's what most people do. You're working on your project. You've been reading the material. You're sitting down to write the discussion or the assignment. And you're like, oh, yeah, this idea pops into your head. Well, you didn't come up with it. You had literally read it an hour before. So any idea that doesn't generate originally from between your own ears, and yes, we can go philosophically on this and say there's no such thing as an original thought. We can argue that point, but as long as it's not from a source I can find real quick. Now, what about common knowledge, such as gravity is a downer? We all know gravity is a downer. Who's ever fallen? I fall all the time. That's common knowledge. You don't cite common knowledge. Now, the level of common knowledge for you as juniors, seniors, seniors, is going to be less than the common knowledge if I'm writing to my academic peers. From there, I'm not going to be necessarily having to define every single little thing. But the second I start talking about a theory or some particular concept, yeah, then I need to start citing. So we deal with common knowledge. Gravity, we all know what gravity is. You don't have to cite it. So there's intentional plagiarism. You're sitting there, you're writing your paper, and you say, I need this. And you take it directly from the article or textbook and put it over into your page. That's intentional plagiarism. And then you have self-plagiarizing, which you're not going to have to worry about. I have to worry about that. Now that I'm published in multiple places, if I cite something that I wrote before, I have to cite myself. Otherwise, I don't show that I'm being transparent. I'm not being academically honest. I'm not being ethical as a researcher. So I cite myself. We talked about that. So plagiarism consequences. You can lose points. And I do deduct points. If someone has a discussion or an assignment, a paper you've written, and I can tell because I know the material. I'm like, I know these concepts came from the material. This isn't common knowledge. And you're sitting there, you're using it, but you're not citing it and referencing it, you'll lose points. You can receive disciplinary action for academic dishonesty. Now, that's the last step with me. I don't jump right to that. I'd rather give you feedback, and I don't do that just once. I'll give you feedback several times if I need to help you learn, hey, I can't do that, or this is how I need to do it. So I give you more than enough chances. You could fail a course, you could lose a scholarship, or you could be removed from school. So it is pretty important that we don't plagiarize. There are some resources. On the announcement page, I put a video where I go through more detailed discussion of APA 7 and academic writing. Try to help you to avoid plagiarism. Some resources you can use. In the video, I talk about Purdue OWL, which is a good resource, but the Clear University Library on that writing and APA page, they have a printout that you can download to your computer, and it's a guide, easy to use guide. They also have 2 drop-down menus, one for citations, one for references. They give you a step-by-step set of instructions for the most common source types. You see, in APA 7, there isn't one way to to cite and reference every single thing. A journal article is cited differently than a newspaper, which is cited differently than a YouTube video, which is cited differently than a textbook. And there are little subtleties that I've learned to pick up after 10 years of being in school that I can find real quick. If you're not doing it right, I'll let you know. Now, I'm not looking for perfection in how you do it. I want to see you trying. Okay, I'll help you with the details. So if I'm taking points away, it's not because you didn't necessarily in format. You had everything there, and I'm helping you get the italics right, stuff like that. I'm going to take points for that. I will take points if you're not having any references, or if you do it completely wrong, such as you just bring over some citation software programs. They don't format it to APA 7. They'll put it on there. It'll look like a link. That's not APA 7. Take the time to make sure it's an APA 7. And this attention to detail, it's not for me being pedantic. You're at a business college. One day you'll be business professionals or going to grad school. Either way, you're going to have to show that you are trustworthy. So when you do these things, when you write your reports at work, cite and reference. It may sound ridiculous, but yes, even at a job, if you got to write a report somewhere and you're pulling information from different sources, you cite it and you reference it so that your supervisor looks at this and they can know they can trust you. They look at it, they know you're paying attention to details. They look at this and they say, I want more of this data. Where did he get this? Boom, it's right there. And so you're showing them you're thinking ahead. So that's why I'm trying to help you with your careers in general, whether it's in academia or out into the real world. So the library is a great source. Another place, the apastyle.org. It's a website. They literally wrote the manual. Now, I remember when it was APA 6, before the latest revision. I had to copy the manual. I used it until every page was wrinkled, written on, crinkled up. I would fall asleep with it next to me at night. I was working on my grad school work and then finally my dissertation. And that thing was literally like a Bible to me. I had it always in my briefcase and I'd fall asleep next to it. You don't need to read the manual. The resources I'm showing you here are more than sufficient for you to get through everything that you need to do. And then, of course, the manual itself, the publication manual, the American Psychological Association 7th edition, don't buy it. If you want to, buy it. I've got a copy of it because I had to for my dissertation, but don't worry about that. All the resources I have before, even just the 2 before, are more than enough. Academic writing, I recommend using the MEAL plan, MEAL. The main idea, this is where you present the main idea or topic of your paragraph. You're introducing it. Assume that your reader may or may not know much about this topic. So you introduce it. Now that's your first paragraph in general is your introduction, but now we're talking about how to format the paragraph. So the first sentence, your main idea of that paragraph. The next sentence or couple of sentences, that's where you give the evidence. Most of your citations are going to be there in that second block. Either there's one sentence or a series of sentences. That's where you're going to find most of the citations. You include material from your sources. You can use direct quotations or paraphrasation. The difference is direct quotation, it takes it right from the text that you're reading, puts quotation marks around it, and then you put your citation. Paraphrasing, you put it in your own words. I prefer paraphrasing because it shows my reader that I've actually processed the information. Okay. Then the next sentence or a couple of sentences, that's where you work this information into your topic. You really start analyzing it. You break it down. And then the last, usually sentence, that's all you need, is a conclusion, and you lead out to your next paragraph. And so it's a brief introduction saying, hey, this is what's coming. This is what we just finished up. And here's the link between them. Easy way to do writing. Drafts. I recommend writing with 3 drafts. The first draft is where you basically word vomit onto the page. It may not make sense to anybody but you. Second draft, you begin to clean it up and organize it. Third draft, you're polishing it. You're putting the final coat of paint on there. You're making it look good. You're making sure your grammar is good. You're making sure your periods and commas are in the right place. Make sure you don't have extra spaces. More is expected of you as an undergrad student rather than when you were in high school. There you can get away with more. Here, we're watching you more because we're training you at a higher level. So when you walk out of here with your diploma saying you got your bachelor's degree and whatever, your future employers are going to see this and they're going to know you've been trained, that you're educated, that you pay attention to detail. Scholarly sources. Not every source carries the same weight. Academic journal articles, these are peer reviewed. I've done peer review before, both as the author and as a reviewer. What happens is I will write up a manuscript. I send it out without my name or any identifying data on there. The journal gets it and they send it out to 2 or 3 reviewers. They don't know who I am. I don't know who they are. It's a blind review, double blind. They review it. They give their feedback. They send it back to the publisher. Then the publisher sends that to me. Now I take that information and I rework my draft. I gave them my final draft, but now they gave me feedback. So I do another draft. So academic journal articles are scientific. They've got proven fact in there. Now in science, we learn more. So what we know scientifically today is different than it was 50 years ago. Not that the reality changed, our understanding of it has grown. So usually you want your sources within 5 years to make sure it's the most current. Academic books, textbooks. This is as good as academic journal articles. Next would be websites of governmental bodies or universities. I got to clarify here. A university will have their forward-facing page. They got their advertisements. They've got, here's why you come to our school. That's not what I'm talking about. Every organization lies when they're advertising. That's what advertisement basically is. But when a university or a governmental body puts out a data set or a report, that's been vetted. So that's reliable. Legal briefs, court cases. If you're using what the judge says, that's as good as gold. If you're putting what the defendant or the plaintiff, what they have to say, you can say this is what their attorney said. You can't say it's fact. It hasn't been proven whether or not this person did X, Y, or Z. So you don't claim it as a fact, but you can claim that they did say this. Websites of organizations. Most of it is going to be full of lies until you get to their 10K. The 10K is the annual report. A lot of companies, public companies, will put their 10K on their website. It's accessible. If not, there's a way to do it through EDGAR, through the SEC. But a 10K is looked at, reviewed, written, compiled, and submitted by a third party. So it's reliable. The company, IBM, does not write their 10K. They bring in Price Cooper Waterhouse, somebody like that. They do it. So this has been vetted. So you can trust that information. News articles, never reliable. Because news is so biased, left, right, middle, up, down, cross, anywhere. What do? So let's say News Channel 7, they have a piece. You want to use what they said in there. You can't claim it's a fact, but you can claim it's a fact that they said it. See what I'm saying? So you claim to the point that you know, that you can prove. So news articles, I've used them and I'll use them again in the future, but I never say that is fact. That is a tertiary source, meaning primary, secondary, tertiary. A tertiary or secondary source needs a primary source to back it up. Now that's grad school writing right there. Just give you a freebie if you're going to go to grad school. Anybody going to go to grad school? Well, that could change. You never know. I wasn't necessarily, actually I was. I'd already decided I was doing one master's. I wound up with 2 masters, a master of philosophy and a doctorate. Rules of thumb. Using the meal plan, a paragraph should be 5 to 7 sentences long. Do not send me a paper that has a 1-sentence paragraph. I will deduct points. You cannot give me the main idea, present evidence. You cannot give me the analysis or the lead out in 1 sentence. You can't do it. It's impossible. The smallest I've probably seen it done and been able to do it myself is 3 sentences. And that was pushing it. I'm surprised that was accepted. Resources for writing, Grammarly. I use it to edit my papers, but you do have to be careful that it doesn't show that it was AI generated. And so when you're going through and it gives you the suggestions on how to reword things, look at it. If you can say, yeah, I like the way that says, it's trying to say exactly what I want, accept it. No problem. You're not going to lose points for it. If you look at it and say that's close, but they're missing something, one of the verb tenses is wrong. I correct Grammarly all the time because it doesn't convey exactly what I wanted, but I do use it. There's Mendeley, and that's to manage your citations, your references, your citations. It's a good source. There are free versions of these. Don't spend money. Of course, the Clear University Library, APA Style, and Purdue OWL. If you've got a question on how to format a paragraph or how to format a table or a graphic, these sources will have it. I'm not sure about the Clear University Library having those, but the other 2 definitely will. That concludes that. Any questions on APA 7 or academic writing? Every class I teach gets this. It's a freebie. You didn't pay for it. It was free.
I have a question.
Yes.
Like in one of the classes a year or 2 ago, they said something about like if you say something that's your own knowledge, you have to kind of write own knowledge in brackets. Do you still do that, or is that not really?
I personally, in my writing, my professional writing, I haven't done that.
Okay.
I might, okay, I take that back. In my dissertation, which was only 154 pages long, I had 20-something pages of references at the end. So it was smaller. Some dissertations get to about 200, 300 pages. There was one place where I went and I discussed something from my personal experience. And I noted that it was from personal experience. It fit into the paragraph just fine, and it was necessary because otherwise I would have to somehow back that up with a source. For what you're writing here, you shouldn't really have to do that because I'm grading it. Okay, so you're not writing grad school level yet.
Yeah.
But I'm reading it. If I can see that it's from personal experience, that to me is the type of a source. But you don't decide that.
Just because a lot of us are international students, so we kind of relate to things from back home,
Yes.
different cultures and everything. So when we say something, it's like we kind of know it just from how we've been raised and everything. So like we don't really necessarily have to say like personal experience or own knowledge. We can kind of just say it, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not going to worry because I have somewhat of a brain between my ears, and I can tell if it's personal experience. If it is, I'm not going to be. And you're not. Don't think I'm taking away tons of points for this because I'm not trying to harm your grades through this process. Rather, I want to help you grow to become better writers. Last fall, there was a senior in my course, and he was planning on going to grad school. I graded his papers more harshly, not to affect his grade, but to affect the feedback, because he was going to go to grad school and he wanted the extra help. His writing was phenomenal. He was already writing at a grad school level, and I wanted to try to help him grow that, and he welcomed the help, the assistance. Most of the time, I'm just letting you know, hey, you didn't put your citations in, and I'll usually remind you every time you give something from a source or use material from a source, you must cite it. I'll give you reminders in the feedback. I try to give substantial feedback. Any other questions? All right. let me get the next batch ready to go for the slide share. And there we go. I'm going to tell you a little bit about me. Basil, you've had me in class before, so you know this, so don't try to go to sleep. I was in the Navy for 4.5 years during the first Gulf War in the medical field. I got out. A year later, I joined the Army. I went into the intelligence field. I did forward recon for military intelligence in the Army. I was a sergeant for a team. I've worked security. I've worked law enforcement. I've ran senior level executive, done some work with nonprofits, set up a nonprofit at one point. Had my own business. My first business was at the age of 15. It was an entertainment company. I was a clown. Went on to become a stage magician, and I did comedy clubs. I performed at the Presidential Inaugural Ball in 1997. I did that for 10 years. So I went from learning to be a clown and doing parties to performing at the Presidential Inaugural Ball. Last show I did was, I think, in 2000. And I got out of the military also in 2000. While I was in the Navy, I performed internationally with a public relations group. Every time we'd pull in the port, I was on a aircraft carrier. We would go to orphanages and embassies, and we would do a lot of community outreach as clowns. I am a disabled veteran. The military was not kind to my body, but I would do it again in a heartbeat. It was a wonderful experience. Let's see. I have my bachelor's is in religion. My first master's is in theological studies, which is odd because I'm agnostic. I have a master's in executive leadership, a master of philosophy in management, and a PhD in management, leadership, and organizational strategy. My first 2 degrees in religion and theology, to me at first, I thought I wasted my time. The more I got into understanding the organizational behavior, the psychology and sociology of organizations, the more I realized it was a benefit, because culture is a huge part of an organization. Once again, humans made it, so it resembles the things we're used to. And religion is a big part of culture. And so it really has helped me in understanding organizations better, the people in the organizations. It also has allowed for me I can teach philosophy. Like Tuesday, Thursday mornings, I teach a philosophy course. So because of my theological degree, I'm able to teach philosophy. I can teach business ethics, stuff like that. So it turned out to be a good thing. My dissertation was, well, we'll say some people would see it as controversial, but I believe that it doesn't matter where somebody chooses to work, they should be treated fairly and humanely. I looked at the application of diversity, equity, and inclusion in a subset of the adult entertainment industry, namely gentlemen's clubs, wanting to see if the female employees were being treated properly by their supervisors. The 9 clubs that were participating in my study, I found that at least in Texas, during the time period of the study, it looked like most of the clubs were actually doing rather good. The 9 that I had as participants were doing phenomenal. So it was interesting. I don't turn away from things. I've done homeless outreach, but I don't do it like normal people. I would go at 2 o'clock in the morning and I would go down the dark alleys where the drug dealers are, and I would look for homeless people that way. I do things the hard way for some reason. I love academia. I love college. I love everything about it. The ability to learn and to be around all kinds of different people and the glean their perspective. You see, right now in this room and including on Zoom, we've got 9, 10 people, including me. That means we have 10 different perspectives. I don't have to agree with your perspective on something for me to learn from it. Your perspective, I already see as valid. Why? Because you have it. That's all I need to know. Now, if I hear your perspective, I get to have a better understanding of this thing we call reality. It's a shared experience. Your views of reality are different than mine. Mine are limited. By talking to other people and getting their perspective, I get a better view of reality. So I welcome people that are different than me, that see things differently than me, that believe differently than me, because it helps me understand more of what's really happening around me. Otherwise, I become like my mother in some ways. I got blinders on. I only have people talking to me that say the things I'm already saying. It's called an echo chamber. It's a cognitive bias and a logical fallacy. I don't have the chance to grow. I don't have the chance to become better. But when I have other people around me that disagree with me, I can become better. And I'm not upset that they disagree with me. Matter of fact, I'd be upset if they totally agreed with me because I'd be boring, in my opinion. So that's good because in academia, when I submit things into my peers, they have to excoriate it, tear it apart, make my grading look like it's nothing on your work. And I want that because that's how science grows. I've been with Clary for almost 3 years now. Hopefully going to be moving to San Diego next spring, where I'm going to put roots down for retirement. I just turned 53. So I figure I've got 10 years to get some solid roots down somewhere. I went to Italy this summer for a week, loved it. I went to Florence. I presented research at a conference there, but I got to go see the Medici Chapel, the Medici crypt, and some parts of the area, and I just really, really enjoyed it. Also, I flew out to San Diego. So I do like to travel. I would like to go back to Italy. I was looking at going to Madrid over Christmas, but that's not going to work out quite yet. My ex-wife, who's still my good buddy, she's there for a year living and working. So I'm going to go out and visit her at some point, and because I've never been to Madrid, so I'd like to go. I like traveling.
Which other countries have you been to?
South Korea, Hong Kong, Singapore, United Arab Emirates,
England?
Australia. No, not the only place in Europe I've gone through. I flew into Paris and jumped on another plane, went to Italy. But I'm planning on doing some more traveling. My problem, what was that?
The African country.
Oh, no, but that's on my list. India, Africa, Europe, these are on my list because there's so much rich history. And I would get lost in some of these places. Like India has got the oldest university on the planet that's there. Now it's a archaeological set of ruins, but I want to see that stuff. I want to go to the libraries in Europe, and I want to go see the cathedrals. And when I was in Italy and I saw the stonework in the Medici Chapel, I was in awe. This was 500 years ago, and the precision was precise. The beauty, the color. There's nothing that can describe it. Seeing it in person was the only, it blew me away. But I want Africa, the cradle of humanity. Seriously, civilization came from Mesopotamia, but humanity came from Africa. I mean, I want to go see everything I can. And I've only got, another 30 years till I croak.
Where do you want to go in Africa? Where do you want to go in Africa?
There's too many places.
I know.
Egypt would have to be on the list.
Yeah,
But
I recommend South Africa.
I can't say I wouldn't go to an area because there's so much to learn everywhere.
Zimbabwe, okay.
You see, my reason for living is to learn as much as I can and then disseminate it out and to experience all that I can. I can't do that if I'm stuck in my apartment or my home or wherever and I don't go anywhere. I don't talk to anybody. I don't travel. So I like exploring. Speaking of exploring, yeah, that's pretty much, I think I covered. Oh, I have a couple hobbies. I like to fish. I do tattooing. I have 66 tattoos myself. I've done half of them on myself, actually doing the artistry. I make models, sci-fi models from scratch. I don't use kits. I don't use plans. I engineer it and I build it from polystyrene or from other mediums. And photography. I like to do photography as a hobby.
That's cool.
So now you know a little bit about me, and over the next 8 weeks, I'm sure I'll get to know a bit more about you. Let's get into today's lecture. It's not going to be very long. The format of the class, Tuesdays, especially for international students, make sure that you attend on Tuesdays because that's your attendance and it's what you need for the visa requirements and all that. And you should already be acquainted with that. Thursdays, it's all on Zoom. But if you miss a Tuesday class, I will post the video on our announcement page. I also will be posting the slide decks that I use So you can use them, and yes, there are some errors in there. That's okay. I edit them continually, but they always have errors. Yes,
Would the cost be the same time as today?
yes. It'll just be on Zoom.
Yeah.
So basically, I'll be coming to you from my living room. You'll see my dog once in a while going here, little Chihuahua, Wiener and Chihuahua, Chihuahua.
They wonderful dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's about 12 years old. He's getting up there. Jordan.
Jordan.
Yep, he's a riot. I've had him for 12 years.
Nice.
All right, let's go and get this started. Okay, so today we're going to talk about work. So when we hear the word work, some people hear a four-letter word, like it's a foul word, work. Well, work, is it just an activity that we do in exchange for money? As you're going to find out, that falls under one of the theories of motivation, the expectancy theory of motivation. I go and work, I do this task expecting to receive a paycheck. That's one theory of motivation. And honestly, most people operate under that theory. There are other types of motivation, like the justice motivation. I do something because it's right. And so we have to go to our core intent of why we do something to find our motivation. So is a job just a place I go to get money, or is there more to it than that? Work can help develop an individual's level of employee satisfaction, employee motivation. Remember, this is a business college, so I do bring this back into the business realm. What do we do to keep our employees satisfied? Well, giving them a paycheck is a good place to start, but while they're at our place of business, they need to have a task to do that's rewarding, maybe one that's challenging, one that is somehow makes them feel like they're accomplishing something. And that gives them an intrinsic type of satisfaction that then they express extrinsically. Organizations have to find ways to balance their mission and vision statements when they look at the employees' happiness levels. A vision and mission statement, as by now you already know, they dictate what the organization is there to do and how they're going to do it and where they see themselves. Okay. But sometimes senior leadership forget that the employees have to somehow connect to this. Here at Clear University, I, as an adjunct professor, I connect to the mission and the vision. I believe in education. I believe in academia and knowledge and growing. But what if I work someplace where I didn't align with their core values of their mission and vision? I wouldn't last very long. I would probably find a job elsewhere. And so in companies that don't connect their mission and vision with their employees' level of satisfaction and motivation, they see a lot of attrition, employees quitting. And here's a little secret I'll tell you. The employees that quit first will be the highest, best trained employees you have. And you're left with the poor producers. So in business, you've got to make sure that you take care of your employees. Otherwise, your good people are going to be gone first. And the quality of your product and services will diminish. Work has to be rewarding. We have status. And in some people, they get in their position, they get more status. Let's think about why that is. Somebody who's a CEO of a large company, they have status. A doctor, a lawyer, a judge, attorneys, well, some. They can have status. In society, they walk out to their community, oh, this is Dr. So-and-so. College professors can have status. There are people that know I'm a professor and I have my doctorate, they call me Doc or Dr. G or whatever. Yeah, it's status, but I'm still just me. I'm the same guy today as I was before I was Dr. Gagnon. And that is how you say my name, Gagnon. It's not Gagnon. That sounds horrible. It's a French word meaning farmer. Some positions, we look down on them. Janitors, laborers. What about the lady working at McDonald's, taking your money and handing you your food? I see that person, I try to make them laugh. I try to make them feel a sense of worth, at least for a moment. Because I know their life is just like mine. It's got its ups, its downs, its joys, and its miseries. That person's a human being. When we look down on somebody because we don't see their job as having status, we're treating them poorly. We're not treating them equitably. So let's consider doctors and lawyers and janitors and food service workers just for a minute. Doctors save lives. Lawyers help ensure justice, or they're supposed to, or they help you stay out of jail. Janitors, they keep hospitals or schools clean. Doctors and lawyers, they have to eat. There's cafeterias and restaurants, and they're staffed with employees who prepare and serve the food. People in positions that they may look down on, but they rely on them. Every position is important and valuable. So which one's most important? None of them, yet all of them. I would never put a doctor as being more important than a food service worker, because that doctor will die without that food being prepared. Yet I will not put the food service worker above the doctor, because that person could die from medical problems without the doctor. We rely on each other. When I was in the Navy, the ship I was on was an aircraft carrier, the USS Constellation. It's been decommissioned. It was the largest conventional carrier that we had at that time in the early 90s. We had 5,000 people on board when we were deployed. I'll tell you right now, every single person on that ship was needed. Whether it was a corpsman like me in medical, who people tried to befriend, they would let me get good food from the chief's mess or the officer's mess, or they'd bring, if I knew I needed boots, they'd bring me an order of boots from supply. They would try to hook me up, because when they were sick, I would see them without having to have them go through sick call. Let's make them stand in line. So they would benefit, I would benefit. So we really worked together. But what about the engineer working in engineering? And when I say an engineer in the Navy, I don't mean an actual engineer working with math. I'm talking somebody who's sweaty, covered in grime and grease, and smells like petrol. That person down there working 12-hour shifts in a hot environment. Horrible job. They're important. Without them, the ship wouldn't move. I learned every single position on that ship, and every single person was necessary for that ship to function. Well, society is much like that. I don't eat at McDonald's. I'm pretty much a vegetarian. But if I were to go to McDonald's, and let's just say order a salad, I wouldn't be back there preparing it. Someone else would have to do it. I rely on others. Human beings rely on other human beings. That's why we have societies. That's why we have family groups. We rely on other people. When I think I'm better or in a better position than someone, I separate myself above them. And that connection gets strained and even broken. And I lose the perspective of that person being human. In my dissertation, these women that I was seeing how they were being treated, they were human beings to me. To other people, they may not be. They were treated poorly by certain people, but I saw their value. They're human. That's all it took. So when we consider an organization, don't look at the clout somebody has with their position. The CEO, he might be a total jerk, and the janitor might be the sweetest person you've ever met. Get off my soapbox. Work and self-identity. Our occupation helps us to be able to figure out who we are as individuals. This is the social identity theory, okay, which is closely interrelated with the social exchange theory, two of the several theories I used in my dissertational study. But social identity theory explains how my identity, my view of myself, stems from the other people around me and from my job. So your employees, their identity in part comes from the company you're leading. So take that in consideration. The impact you have on them is immense. Now, I impact that person's life through giving them a job. Their identity now begins to shape to include aspects and attributes of this job and this company. But it doesn't stop there. They go home, their wife, their children, their husband are influenced by this change in their identity. It doesn't stop there. Their neighbors, the people in their social groups are influenced, their friends, but it doesn't stop there. They go to Walmart and the cashier is impacted by this change in their identity. It spreads out. And so if organizational leadership can see that they impact the identity of their employees to this magnitude, maybe they'll actually start treating them like the human beings they are. We also can use Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And you're going to be learning that if you haven't been exposed to it yet. It's a pyramid It's a diagram and it's a good theory. But over the past 10 years, 20 years, people have expanded it. They, instead of having like, what's it, 5, 7 levels, they've gone down to, I think I've seen it up to 25 levels. And I think that's a little insane because the original grouping does just fine for explaining what we need. But we can use these to help us understand self-actualization, which is the ultimate pinnacle of Maslow's pyramid. Self-actualization, that is a need humans have. But we can't get self-actualization until our other needs, our more primal and base needs, are met, such as shelter, food, family grouping. Once these are met and they're thriving, I now can move towards the more intrinsic parts, dealing with self-actualization. Who am I? And here is that right there, self-actualization. That's the pinnacle. Let's start at the bottom though, psychological needs. In another MGT class I teach, we go through psychological safety for teams. Psychological safety for teams, there's 4 stages to it. There's an inclusion, learner, contributor, and challenger. And this is how people interact within that team. The main thing is, let's say we're a team. I, as the leader, need to make sure you feel safe in this team so that when we are looking at a project or we're breaking down data or we're dealing with decision making, you contribute any ideas you may have relating to this. If you don't, that's self-censorship. Your name, sir?
Leo.
Leo. Leo, we're working on this project. You got this idea and you know that it pertains to this, but you don't say it because you fear ridicule. You have been experiencing ridicule from people in this group, from me, the leader, even. So you don't give the idea, but it was your idea that would have saved the company. Therefore, every idea should be welcome. Even if your idea is that we need to have a car full of clowns. Even that ridiculous, I'll tell you why. Because your idea about a car full of clowns might stimulate your mind, sir, to come up with an idea that is feasible that will save the company. But you wouldn't have had it without his idea. So there's no such thing as a bad idea in this setting. We want people to feel that's safe to say things. We're not going to make fun of you for saying we need a car full of clowns. Next is going to safety needs. Safety needs. This is where I have food. I have shelter from the inclement weather. I have a lock on my door. Something even as simple as that. I know that when I go to bed at night, I lock the door. My chances of being robbed or assaulted while I sleep go down dramatically. So there's safety. Food is safety. It assures that I will be around tomorrow. Food is fuel. Also, my family's safe. They're fed. They're housed. Love and belonging. Humans are social critters. Now, I am very much a loner in some aspects. That's because I'm an introvert. Wait a minute. I'm also an extrovert. You see, I'm both. I can be around large groups of people. I've been in front of thousands of people speaking. But there are times where I just shut myself off in my garage and work on these models. Maybe I play music, maybe I don't. There's times where I want to talk to somebody, and there's times where I don't want to see another living soul for nothing. I know that. I've self-actualized, so I know this about me, and I'm okay with that. But we need people around us. I'm distant from most of my family, save 2 people, my son and my sister. My own mother, I can go months without talking to my own mother. 1, she drives me nuts, but 2, it's just I don't have that need. But I talk to my sister. I talk to my son. So for me, that need has been met. That need may look different for you. You may want to talk to your mom and dad. My dad died 5 years ago, that's why I didn't include him. But when I was a child, my sister and I, we were abused by our parents for years, physically and psychologically. I don't want to have much to do with my mother. Before my dad died, the only reason I had a relationship with him is because he and I fixed the problems and addressed every single one of them. My mother has never done that. Now, I don't hate my mother. but I don't expose myself to her very much because of things that happened. And I wanted to protect my family from that. So everybody's got a different type of this need and love and belonging. Yours might be different than mine. It's up to you to know what it is. And it's ultimately your responsibility to get it fulfilled. But as an employer, I need to encourage you to have the resources to be able to find and have that. What about esteem? How I feel about myself. We look in the mirror. I tell you right now, we all see our faults, but you know what we see more than our faults? Our good things. I think I got a good face. I look in the mirror, I see that. I like my tattoo work, I see that. When I hold up the mirror, even metaphorically, I see the best qualities of myself. And I try to turn away from my faults. But that's not what we should do. We should regularly assess ourselves. Where are the faults that I have? Now the responsibility lies on me. I either fix the fault, get rid of the fault, or I accept the fault. And if I accept the fault, then I accept the consequences of it. And that is for the good and bad things about me. There's bad things about me and I've accepted them. Like I can come across very uncaring at times. And that's something I've accepted about myself, but I've learned to modify that so other people are not really impacted by it. Tell you a little secret about me. I've never been diagnosed with it, but I have a lot of the criteria of being a sociopath. Now, that may sound bad, but most of your CEOs are sociopaths or psychopaths. Usually it has to do with their friend groups. That's how you can tell the main difference. There's a spectrum. I'm not at the end of the spectrum where I'm out with the axe and I'm hunting people down, but I'm at that part where I over-focus on myself too much. And I've learned that. So I found ways to compensate, to have empathy, because I may not naturally have empathy, but I found a way to access it. And so what I do is I meet somebody or I'm in there talking to them or I see them, I hear about them. I think this one thing, how would I feel in that situation? If I wouldn't like it, then I'm going to treat that person with care and concern. If I would like that situation, then I'll applaud them. So I've learned that usually helps me so I access the empathy that I might otherwise lack. So there are ways that we can take those faults we have, be able to accept them, and still benefit people around us. Personal responsibility is literally everything. Organizational responsibility also is everything when we look at it from the business side. How can organizations help their employees to build up their self-identity in a positive way? Well, give them rewarding work to do. Give them fair compensation. And when they have a problem in their life, have their back. And by that, I mean, they got to go to the doctor's office, dentist's office. Work with them. We may not be able to give them all the time that they need, but give them what you can. Sometimes people just need their supervisor to listen to them for a moment. And to realize that supervisor doesn't know what my home life is like. My bathroom could be flooded. My place could have burnt down last night. My kids could be sick. My wife could be ill. My supervisor doesn't know that. So if I'm that person's supervisor, I think about these things. I think this person's life, they have life. They got their ups and their downs. Maybe they got something down in their life. This person's usually happy when they come to work. Today, they're ornery and angry. Or maybe their kids are sick, or their house burned down, or who knows what. Take time and listen to them. That will do so much in building up that positive self-identity. How can organizations use Maslow's hierarchy to accomplish this? Well, one, it's not the organization's job to help you self-actualize, but it is there to give you the resources that could lead to it. You come to work, I give you compensation. You use that compensation to pay your rent and get food. You come to work, you work your hours, and instead of making you do tons of overtime, I make sure that you have regular time off. Why? You get to spend it with your family, the social needs, the love needs. And so I take into consideration in how I schedule you. Some jobs require more than others. When I was in the military, when we were deployed, we were deployed. There was no time off. unless you had a family emergency and then you got leave. Otherwise, I worked 7 days a week for a month straight on that carrier in between San Diego and Busan, South Korea. Had half a day off on Sunday. We had a mission we had to do. We had to be at work. But my supervisors let us have breaks, made sure we had time for lunch, made sure that, our berthing was taken care of, which is where we slept. It's called berthing. They made sure that we had the resources so we could have a life that we needed. The ship had stores. We could go buy the soap we need. If I didn't have money, normally my supervisor would find a way through a company fund or a departmental fund to make sure I had shaving cream or soap or stuff like that. I, as a sergeant, helped some of my soldiers be able to do that, to meet some of their needs when they were in a situation where they had absolutely no money. Little things like that can help meet those needs on Maslow's pyramid. Competitive advantage. This is the organization's ability to succeed in meeting the needs of its customers. Value is determined by the voice of the customer. Value is not determined by the organization. I see Apple, I see an Asus. You buy these computers because they have value. You needed it to do something. You bought it for specific reasons. Because of that, your desire to have the Asus, you gave Asus value for that product. Without you, that computer would literally have no value. Now the components, yeah, they got $1 value, but there's no value to the customer unless it's something the customer needs. And so if you want a competitive advantage, you got to have a product your people need and want. Your customers, right? This applies to governments, churches, and families. We have to meet some sort of need in order to draw people to us and to create this interconnectivity between us. And by the way, governments, churches, families, friend groups, these are all types of organizations. When I talk about an organization, it's a system. And a system is a series of elements, be it people, policies, procedures, processes that come together and interrelate. In the case of human beings, the interconnectivity, that's the communication that occurs. You, Sir Leo, you might hate my guts. That's part of that interconnection. I don't think you do, but I'm saying that's part of the interconnectivity. As human beings, we're going to experience the good, the bad, and all of it. But the interconnectivity is what gives us there's an advantage. The relationship we have in this moment is one where I give you information, you do the work, I grade it, you pass the class, you get your degree. There's always some form of exchange in these relationships that gives the advantage. It's advantageous for me to teach properly, and it's advantageous for you to learn properly. Having a competitive advantage means that the organization is best at what they provide, what they produce, or the best in their industry. And competitive advantages are globally. During World War II, the United States we had the competitive advantage for manufacturing. We could make Sherman tanks like it was nothing. Jeeps, airplanes, everything. At the end of World War II, after we had dropped the atomic bombs on Japan, we now go to Japan and we build them up. We handed them part of the manufacturing sector. They took that and ran. Let's take Toyota. Toyota became one of the best brands that people sought, not because it was the highest quality, but because it was lasting. It was reliable. They developed concepts we still use in business today. TQM, Total Quality Management. Motorola, another company, that's where Six Sigma comes from. Okay, so we had competitive advantage. Japan, after World War II, they gained competitive advantage in the automotive manufacturing. We lost it. Is that bad? No. Competitive advantage fluctuates. When we give up a competitive advantage, now we have the opportunity to adopt a new one. And we did. The United States adopted other forms of competitive advantage in the finance community, etc. So when people are worried about all our jobs are going to other countries, I'm not worried about it. Because even if AI comes in, there's going to be a lot of jobs that come that we don't even have now, doing things we don't even know about to support AI. So it's this rotating process. I have competitive advantage. Now it moves over here and I gain a new one. And so it's kind of a way that it becomes fair on the global level. I hope that, hopefully that makes sense. I'm trying to convey it. It's competitive advantage is not as complicated as people might think at times, but it's not something we should hold on to with our dear life. Because if we're willing to give it up at a moment, we're going to get another one. And it might be even better. Globalization was a bad word for quite a while and still can be. I don't think so. Decades ago, many nations had areas that specialized in specific industries. Now this specialization has moved to entire nations. One nation may be the best at developing technology, while another one is best at manufacturing that technology. Case in point, Apple. They're a US company. They design the computers, they get it ready to go, but it's made in China. They're better at producing it. This is how competitive advantage can shift and be shared. And that's perfectly fine. What does that do? That means more people at the global level are benefiting from this company. And there's nothing wrong with that. I already talked about that. So as nation A secures a competitive advantage, some jobs will be moving to a different nation. We've been securing this competitive advantage. Now the jobs start trickling to another nation. That's showing that competitive advantage is now shifting. And over enough given time, enough jobs will have gone over the nation B that they have the competitive advantage that we once had. But our workforce here that no longer has those jobs now is able to go do other jobs and develop a new competitive advantage. Innovation is the driving force behind this. Innovation relies on creativity. Creativity relies on chaos. We as human beings do not do well with uncertainty or chaos because we think in a linear way. If A, then B. Reality is A, Q, 52, 47, B. It's all over the place. It's helter-skelter. When we learn to approach things from a non-linear perspective, we accept the uncertainty, knowing that innovation is going to come from it. That's why people like artists and engineers can seem a little chaotic at times. They're creative. There's nothing wrong with it. Managing someone who's an engineer or an artist, you don't use traditional leadership styles. You use what's called laissez-faire, hands-off approach. You support what they're doing, make sure they have the resources, but let them have creative control. So innovation brings change. So nation A has the competitive advantage. It trickles to nation B. We are innovating something new. We develop a new technology. It starts going. All the jobs that were over here working on the original competitive advantage now shift to the new one. And the process starts over until finally we've mastered this and the jobs start trickling to another nation. We go get another innovation and the whole process keeps going. We'll never be without a competitive advantage. Every global locale on this planet has a competitive advantage. And it will shift. It will always shift, but we're always able to get a new one. Barry Oshry in 2007 discussed how change leads to innovation, but only if people stop clutching to the old, secure ways of doing things. That's called the status quo. I remember when I was your age, it was the late 80s, early 90s. Life was much different back then. I could look at that time period as the good old days and long for it to be back like that again. No. That time period had its time. We're here, we're now. There's a different set of external factors affecting this moment in time than there was then. The solutions of that day will not work today. We need new solutions for today. Think about this. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, the world, global wars, everything, it was all happening in a specific way at that time period. That's a set of variables and factors affecting companies, corporations, businesses. They developed their solutions based on those factors. 20 years, 30 years later, we have a different set of factors and variables affecting the moment. So a solution that worked 20, 30 years ago will not be efficient for today. So we need to adopt a way of approaching things today that allows for this uncertainty. We leave it in the past. We stop trying to hold on to the old ways of doing things, and we accept the fact that we just don't know. We embrace that chaos, innovation happens, and we start the cycle all over again. Our competitive advantage shoots up, then it starts declining, trickles to another country, we hit uncertainty, we want to hold on to the old ways of doing things. If we refuse to do that, creativity and chaos happen, a new innovation, and we start having another competitive advantage again. That's why it's cyclic. I don't feel like doing that. Total quality management, I touched on that briefly a minute ago. This allows for every step to be analyzed in your production process. It allows for changes in design and production, and it's a more agile approach to industry. Waste. Organizations that have wasteful steps. A wasteful step is something that doesn't add value to the product or service the company is making or providing. It's a non-value added step. We can get rid of that. That's called lean management. By removing that, that's waste. And in Japanese, which a lot of these things like Six Sigma and Agile rely on Japanese terminology, that's called muda. It's waste. We remove the waste from our system so that we can be more agile. What does that mean? We can adapt to the changes as they occur. Why would we want to be agile as a company or as a leader? Because change will always happen. And the problem with change, it's happening more rapidly. When I graph this out, it's on a bifurcation graph, and it looks something like this. Try to do it over here so people online can see. Whatever it is we're talking about, it could be our process, our production, whatever, life in general. We hit a moment of uncertainty. It's a squiggly line. Two alternatives come from that. They go on until they hit moments of uncertainty. Each one gets two potential outcomes. That's bifurcations. The ratio that is this distance to this distance, it's always the same. It's the Feigenbaum constant. So we know that change is happening more and more rapidly, whether it's a dripping faucet at your sink, a distant quasar, or the McDonald's Corporation. The change is happening at a faster pace. Now, we can't tell you exactly when the chaos or uncertainty is going to happen, only that it's happening more rapidly. So if the time period between this chaotic moment of uncertainty to this one, what's, let's say, a month, the next one, it's going to be less than a month. The next one will be even less than that until we finally get down. Change is happening almost by the minute. If we look at human history, that's exactly what's happened since we started recording history. People, when they experience this uncertainty, these squiggly lines, they want to grip onto the way things were back here. So we're here, we hit this moment of chaos. We want here. We know the solution there. We want that solution. We want stability, but that won't work because all the external factors impacting that moment are different. That's different. This is different. They're different time periods. So organizational structure, we have to find a way to include, why do I even have that there? Okay, the old ways of doing things included an authoritarian silo structure. If we look at the 1920s, 1930s, 1940s, a company had silos. Does anybody know what siloing in an organization is? I am the president. Beneath me, I have vice presidents. Beneath them, they have departments. Each department is almost like it's walled off. You cannot communicate between the human resources department and the research and design department. There's no communication occurring. If I want to talk to somebody over there, I got to send it up to the chain here. It goes over and then down. Communication is slow. Change is slow. In a cross-functional or a matrix type of company, I can just go over and talk to that person. So it's networked all the way around. The interconnectivity, it's spread throughout the entire company. It's agile. Who plays sports? Probably all of you, right?
Yeah, we
Okay,
wanna
think
do-
about soccer. Anybody play soccer? Probably. Oh, okay, that's what I thought. If you're agile on the field, it means that you can jump around and kick the ball, you can move, right? You're able to adapt. If your opponent's coming this way, you run that way. That's agile. Companies have to be that way in a type of environment like this, where change is inevitable, where the factors keep changing. Companies have got to be able to adapt quickly. That's why you need the organization to be agile. That's why you want to get rid of wasteful steps, because those wasteful steps will bog you down. A silo structure in an organization is a wasteful step. So just changing the way that we approach things organizationally in a company, or even in our own life, can change. I've been married 4 times. Obviously, I should not be married. I got that now. At 53, I get this. I wasn't always to blame, but I had my fair share of blame in there. If I knew then what I know now, I wouldn't have approached certain issues like I did. I would have been more agile when problems arose. I would have been able to adapt in my responses more effectively. So the waste in my life are those time periods where I kept clinging on to the old process of doing things, the old way of looking at things. Because then if I was applying the old way under new set of criteria, I was always failing. So what I've adopted now is, I don't know what the criteria is until I find out. Solve the problem, go. New problem, I know it's new criteria, I have experience, I know it worked, but I don't know that it's going to work now until I determine what the criteria is and I adapt. Organizational structure over the next 100 years is going to change drastically. It has to. We've already added to the authoritarian and different types of structures we use in organizations to include virtual. Why would we even do that? Because people can remote into work. Technology allowed for this change. We had to adapt. Oh, a lot of people in their companies, they don't really know or understand what their organization's mission and vision are. They might be on a wall, in a poster, they see it every day, but they don't understand what it is. Leadership needs to take that message that's contained in those statements and make it accessible to every worker at every level. If these people knew and understood the mission and vision, they could see the big picture. If I don't know what the mission and vision of this company are, I don't see the big picture. So the changes you're making, Mr. CEO, I don't agree with them because I don't know why you'd make those changes. But if I saw the bigger picture, I would understand. We do this through sharing the mission and vision in a way our staff can comprehend. They can begin to take pride in how their job helps meet that mission, building up that motivation, that self-esteem that we were talking about. Helps employee motivation, reduces turnaround and turnover. We don't have that many people leaving because they're feeling this reward inside themselves. They feel like they're contributing to something. When we withhold information from our staff, we make the situation in such a way that they are going to want to leave. DEI, once again, one of those topics that people look down on in many ways, at certain times through history and even now. But let's think about this. Diversity. None of us here are the same. Now, let's just say we're in a room where everybody is dressed exactly like I am in a suit. We all look the same, all have the same hat, everything, okay? We're still different because we view the world around us differently. So the reality is, even if you try to have a homogeneous group of people that all look the same, every one of them sees things differently. So take these groups that are against diversity. They themselves are diverse. They're just not willing to see it and admit to it. And we got to be able to type. That word is misspelled. And I corrected. I went through this 3 times already. Brining. Bringing in other perspectives. That's nice. We got to bring in other perspectives. So we bring in people that disagree with us, like I mentioned at the beginning. We want their perspective. Do you know that women in the workforce bring benefits that we may not always fully comprehend? A company with a female CEO typically has higher level of organizational communication. The company itself also has more empathy. What about diverse cultures? If we bring in people from diverse cultures, we bring with them their diverse and beautiful cultural background that can help us in problem solving and decision making. When we bring people in from different religions, we get different worldviews that can help us in the same things, decision making and problem solving. Different age groups. When we get past the barrier between you're in the 20 to 25 age group bracket and I'm in the 50 to 60 age group bracket, and I know better than you because I've lived longer, and you don't know that much because you're so young, and then you see me and you think he's stuck in the old ways. When we get past all that, I got stuff I can share that will benefit you, and you've got a lot that will benefit me. So let's work together in this organization as a team. We need to break down these barriers that make us feel that diversity is bad. Having all these different people, different age groups, genders, nationalities, religions, all helps an organization to approach the problems that they face in a more agile and lean way. We get to remove the steps that don't work. DEI itself, as a series of policies, fights against racism, sexism, ageism, discrimination against abilities, people who are handicapped, like myself, fights against narrow perspectives and limited customer bases. If a company is not practicing diversity, equity, and inclusion, and people out in their market share hear about this, they may stop shopping for their products. There's a company called Patagonia. They make outdoor gear. People love to shop there when they find this out. If you care about the environment, you'll like Patagonia. They try to protect the environment. They try to recycle as much of their clothing as possible. They give to the poor clothing that's not being sold. They do a lot of these outreach things to try to help the environment and society. So if that is important, I will shop from there. So we go to companies that support the things we support. And most people want to be treated fairly. So if a company is treating their staff and their customers fairly, they're going to increase the amount of customers they have. They can increase their market share. Corporate social responsibility programs only work if they're applied. If it's just a policy on paper, it won't work. If you try to save the environment just to look like you're saving the environment, it won't work because that's greenwashing. But when a company actually cares about the things it stands for, diversity and all these different things, their customers are going to see it and they're going to buy even more of their product, increasing the profit and the value of that company. We already went through that. Responsibilities of being a manager or management, being in management. You got planning, controlling, environment scanning. Now, that's not just the environment like the great outdoors, but the environment of your industry. What is happening in your current business sector? Supervision, coordinating, customer relations and marketing, community relations, internal consulting, monitoring products and services. Management and managers in general do a lot. But let me ask you this. Is a manager the same thing as a leader? Why not?
A leader like shows how to do it.
Like you had me in the other class. I like that. You remember good. Leadership is relational. Management is positional. Not every leader is a manager, and not every manager is truly a leader. Think about your sports team. Think about somebody who's not the team captain, but that people go to when there's problems in their life. Or maybe when they have questions on their homework. Think about the people that others turn to. That person is a leader. When you look at your staff and you see who people turn to when there's problems or issues or needs, those people are the leaders. And it rarely is it going to be the manager, especially in a lot of the major companies that are out there, because they see this management, it's positional. I'm the CEO. Janitors shouldn't talk to me unless I talk to them. Really? Why? You're all human. You put your socks on the same way every day, don't you? What makes you better than a janitor? I'm not better than a janitor. Half the time I'd rather be a janitor. So today we kind of went through some things in almost a machine gun way. Because there were some concepts I wanted to get you started with. DEI. I introduced you to corporate social responsibility. These things are not the enemy. Misusing them is. Saying that we're going to have corporate social responsibility programs only to increase our market share is bad. Having these policies in place because we actually care about our customers and our employees is good. One will bring profit increase that's sustainable. One will bring a spike in profits and it will drop off. If a company, I've seen studies, if companies apply corporate social responsibility programs, and that includes DEI, in a sincere way, over 3 years, their profits increase in a steady, maintainable way. If you just do it for a fad, you have a spike and it drops off. Would I rather my company see great profit on a sustained basis or just in the first quarter of the year? Most people would say they want it sustained, but many companies act like they only care about it during the first quarter of the year. We talked about self-actualization. We talked about knowing yourself. We talked about how companies can help people to better understand themselves. We talked about more motivation. Now we're going to spend the next 8 weeks going through these in more detail. Where you're going to learn about learning and how learning occurs. Because in business, we got to teach our teams. And not all learning is formal. There's vicarious learning. Anybody know what that is? Do you know why when you watch certain movies, you have certain emotions happen inside of you? Your body's experiencing it vicariously. You don't have to actually do something to experience the emotion. You don't actually have to go to a class to learn the content. We can learn through observing others. So as a leader, knowing this, I can help my team become even better by teaching them, not just in formal ways, but in the informal ways by showing them in action certain things. And they can learn vicariously. You're going to learn about that. You're going to learn about so many wonderful, this is one of my favorite classes to teach. This one and the other one you had me in Basel. Those are my 2 favorite classes. Absolutely love these subjects. So any questions? Any comments, concerns, complaints? Anybody want to throw me out a window yet?
Not.
Not yet? Okay. We're going to have fun in this class, all right? There's some things we're going to take pretty seriously, but we can always try to do most things with tongue in cheek and have a joke in the process too. There's nothing against that, right? Food or drinks in this course, I really don't care. If you bring something in, make sure you police up, meaning you throw away the trash. Don't leave crumbs around. Crumbs bring bugs. Bugs cause problems. Of course, I didn't see a sign up there, but sometimes there'll be a food allergy sign on the door, and every class that meets there's no food allowed in that room. So we always are mindful of that. I didn't see a sign on the door for that. I look forward to a great B term with you all. I'm looking forward to this. I think this is gonna be a lively group. I can tell already. You aren't just bumps on a log sitting there. This is gonna be a fun couple months. All right, then keep up with Canvas, do your discussions. Oh, by the way, discussions. Make sure you reply to at least 2 classmates every discussion, because that will cost you about 5 points every single time if you don't. And that's like a whole letter grade. When you take up all the discussions and add it up, that's like a whole letter grade. So, and if you have any questions, email me, please. I'm usually pretty quick when responding. Good to have you in class for real, Leo.
Thank you. Thank you. I got you like.
Oh, I loved it. Absolutely loved it. I actually want to go back when I have more time. I was there for 5 days. Let me close out the Zoom. Let me just close out Zoom real quick here. Zoom.
I'll see you later.
All right, see you later.
I'll trade it. It's not a hard.